Welcome, welcome, welcome to Angels Don't Lie. I'm really excited to see everyone tonight. We're going to talk about hard stuff tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about trauma. We're going to talk about neuroplasticity. I said in my earlier post that my friend Sheree here is the queen of neuroplasticity. Yeah, I'm calling you that, the queen of rewiring your brain.
My tiara on.
Yes, she's got a tiara on. And why this matters, like, especially because we're going to talk about like abundance, like the things that you are just regular things that you're hoping to receive in your life. It doesn't have to be just like fame and wealth. It can be like, a relationship, a healthy relationship. It can be like having a companion pet with you, or having things actually go in your direction, like a positive way instead of being negative. We've had an overload of energy with COVID, with the political climate, with the world the way it is. So we want to give you some tools that you guys can use and take away and implement into your life to really start noticing, like, oh yeah, I'm doing things better. I feel better, and actually start to see that abundance come to you instead of a lack feeling. So when you guys join on, say hello, number one, in the comment section. Let me know that you're here, and definitely share this out with your friends. All right. So that's what we're going to do. So let me introduce you. Are you ready?
Okay. Yes.
So here is Sheree. Sheree, I'm going to let you just take over and just tell them who you are and really why they need to know you, because
Okay.
your magic is amazing.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jeannie. That's nice of you to
That's so
say.
nice. That's nice of you.
Yeah, that's really nice of you to say. Okay, so my name is Sheree, and I am a counselor and a hypnotherapist, and I am kind of a getting to be a little bit of a neuroplasticity nerd, I think, because
Definitely.
it's something I like to talk about a lot. Like, and so um, you know, what I'm doing right now is I'm working with people on a lot of different issues, anxiety and blocks that they have in their lives. And like you were saying, Jeannie, like coming out of this whole COVID thing, a lot of people feel really stuck,
Mhm.
and not really knowing exactly what to do next. And then, or maybe even knowing what to do next, but not knowing how to get from point A to point B, having blockages and stuck energy and neural pathways in their brains that keep them stuck in those places. So, um, do you want me to just go ahead and talk about
Yeah, let's
neuroplasticity?
so first let's talk about your area of expertise, because I know that you said you're a counselor and that you're doing this, but you have an extensive background of working
I do.
with
Okay. Well,
trauma.
yeah, I have an extensive background working with trauma. I worked for years with domestic violence survivors and sex assault survivors. That was a really big piece of my career. Um, I also worked with the Department of Children and Families with, again, with the domestic violence piece, and also with the staff that were, I mean, those the people that work in those frontline fields, they also experience a lot of trauma and a lot of stress and anxiety working in that field, and burnout too. So I have a lot of experience there. And then for the past, I guess we could say 10 years now, I've been working in the addiction treatment field, working with addicts of, any kind of addiction. And so I do have I think, an extensive background in working with people that have
Yeah,
some kind of history of trauma.
I remember when I first met you, it was actually in Kathy Henkel's belly dance class.
Yeah.
We were in a
Oh, I
belly
love
dance
that
class.
class. I was just talking about
Such
that
a
class
great
the other day.
workout. Such
Love
a good
that
workout.
workout.
Um, which actually, it's funny because we did one over COVID, and you guys might have gone to it. You might have been online and joined us. It's amazing. Anyways, we did that class together years and years ago, so long ago. My kids were still little. And you were working at, in the domestic violence field. And I just remember, like, looking at you and your energy. And this is something that I do. I watch people's energy. And it was just like, I needed to feel like I know you. Like, I just wanted to lean in because you had this, like, I knew you were helping people. And so that to me always portrays as like somebody standing in their power, standing in their truth. And it's really sexy. It's really just a beautiful quality. And so I loved leaning in and asking you questions. I don't know if you remember me asking you questions back then.
I do remember you. I absolutely do remember you. And I remember um, that studio that Kathy had for a while there. That was
Mm.
such a nice
This was
studio.
before her studio. This was at the other place, the club, and we were in the front room. This is even before.
Oh, that's years. Now you're really talking
I
years ago.
know it
Oh,
really
yeah.
was
Yeah, I
because
do remember.
I wasn't involved in the women's center yet, and that's when I was. It was before all that. We were doing foster care still,
Right, right,
and I
right.
think that's where we were talking. We were going back and forth what that was like, from
Yeah.
our perspective.
Yeah, I worked when I met you, that was quite a while ago. Um,
Mm,
I was working with the Women's Center and I was working in the courthouse. So I worked in the Danbury Superior Court as a victim
mhm.
advocate for domestic violence victims. And then I
Yeah,
went from there and I went to work at the Danbury Police Department. And it was
that's where it was. I knew you were at the
okay.
police department. Yes,
Yeah, I was
yes,
at the
yes.
Danbury Police Department. The state of Connecticut had
Hmm.
given, grant money to different agencies. The Women's Center in Danbury was one of the ones that got the grant money to have a victim advocate
Yep.
housed in the police department for domestic violence and sex assault victims. So I worked at the Danbury Police Department, which was
You might
also
know you
interesting.
might know Pat Zachman. She the director of the Women's Center. She's watching tonight. She's a dear friend
Oh,
of
is
mine.
she? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, hi, Pat. It's a long time ago, but hi,
Yeah.
Pat. Um, yeah, so that was an interesting. My years at the Women's Center were really, really good growth years. I
Mm,
can't really say that my years at the Denver Police Department were my favorite part,
yeah.
but I did learn a lot there,
It had to be hard.
it was very hard. It was really what was difficult about it. Really was trying to fit into the policing culture, being a non-police officer. So being a civilian trying to fit into a police culture was difficult and very challenging. And it was also it was traumatic for me, I have to say, because let's face it, at that time in our history, probably now it'd be a little bit more welcome, but then it was like I was like 2004 maybe. Um, it was just a climate of like, this is like cops, and cops have a I don't know what the word. It's almost like a subculture,
Mm.
policing, and there's a good reason for that. But it was interesting for me to learn how to navigate it, and it wasn't always easy. And
Well, there's a duality to everything, right?
yeah,
So, there's a duality to like to being a good officer and to,
totally.
yeah, for sure.
I know there's a lot of, and this is a whole different subject that we don't certainly need to get into, but because of my years at the police department, I understand a lot of the police mentality, the law enforcement mentality, and
Mm.
that it is really true. They have a very, very hard job.
Yeah,
Police
talk about
officers have a really
stress.
hard job, and
Yeah.
and for better or for worse, they're just human beings, and they make mistakes. And some of the mistakes are in the news are bigger than mistakes. They're horrendous things, and everybody is aware of that. However, I do also know that there's a lot of really good police officers. I got the pleasure and honor to work with some of them, and
I found the
and
same is true. Like even when we were when we were doing foster care, the caseworkers that we would have, there was a duality there as well because there would, be these young, newly, graduated caseworkers that would come in and, like want to save the world, and they would have a lot of energy, and then you would have more seasoned one, and they were a little bit more aware of the non-movement in this bureaucratic system of
yes,
like uh, not being able to really get things done. And there was a hierarchy, like you just had to, there was always somebody above you would have to call to get the things, the
yes,
littlest things, like even to get an approval to bring one of the kids to the ear doctor was like jumping through 1,000 hoops. I was
yeah,
on the phone. I just remember like forever. That's what I was doing, advocating all the time.
yeah, yeah. It was an interesting climate and culture, and I'm happy to say I'm still good friends with a couple of the officers that I worked with, and still communicate with them regularly. Not even on Facebook, like really communicate.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
They call me sometimes on the telephone, like in the olden days, and
So
yeah.
now like you're in this new space of working with the neuroplasticity, and you're a girl who's worn many hats similar to me in the past, where I was like doing all these different jobs. I know you've done
Yeah.
massage therapy, you've done, I don't
Oh
even
my
know all the
gosh.
things you've done.
Yeah. I mean, I worked at the Women's Center a long time. I was one time, a long time ago, you probably don't know this, the only woman on the second shift in a textile mill.
No.
Yes, when I was 19 years old. Can you imagine? 19 years old, only female on in a textile mill on the second shift. Yeah. That was an interesting gig.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've managed restaurants. I went from I've worked in an advertising agency. That was all when I was much younger, and then I just got into. I really did have a calling. I feel for counseling, helping people, being a healer, being a just being a healer. And so I ended up. I worked at an agency where we provided services for people with physical challenges, intellectual challenges, whatever. I worked there for a long time also, and then I went from there to the Women's Center,
So
and
now
I worked.
you worked in you were saying like with drug and alcohol and addiction,
Yeah,
um, and
yeah. So I segued out of the Women's Center. I went to DCF in New Haven. I was there for a little while. I learned a lot there too. It was just really, honestly, it was just too long of a commute. I didn't. It was an awful drive every day. So I left there. Well, this is why this is an interesting thing. I became a master gardener, and I
a
gardened.
master gardener.
Yes, a master gardener. And so I was a gardener. I've also gone to massage. I've been a massage therapist since 1994. Um, I really don't do massage very much anymore, unless a friend has pulled a muscle, then maybe. And I'm a Reiki practitioner, Reiki master. I don't like to say that; it sounds kind of weird, but I've been in the whole Reiki thing, and always drawn to healing. I've always been drawn to more holistic um, and esoteric, therapies and modalities. I've always liked to see
Hmm.
the balance. And so then I went to work at a addiction treatment center and worked there for quite a long time. And now I'm working at another one that's pretty local. I worked there 3 days a week, and then I started a private practice because in the meantime, I went to a hypnotherapist to deal with an anxiety issue that I was having. And I've been to therapy, regular therapy, and I've taken their medications, and I've taken all the herbs, and I've gone to all the healers, and I've done all the things. And even though it was better, it just wasn't. It was really getting in the way of some of my peace and happiness in life.
And
And
it just
so
does that, right? Who
it
can
does.
relate? Like, guys, anybody can relate to that anxiety, like really interfering with your everyday. Um, Let me know in the comment section because that's a big deal, right?
It is a big deal. And we think about anxiety like I used to think, oh, panic attacks and anxiety, like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. Like who gets that? But really, it's like the number one thing that takes people to therapists is anxiety and then
Yeah.
depression. And they
Right.
usually go together too, anxiety and depression.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I went to a hypnotherapist because there was just a specific thing that I wanted to do. And it was that I wanted to go to Costa Rica on a trip, and I had to fly a lot. Now, I'm not really afraid of flying, but there's other anxieties that go with flying for me, like being closed in, being out of control, all these things. So I was like, I've got to go on this trip. I'm dying to go there. So I was like, I'm going to try hypnosis. So I found this really good hypnotherapist, and I worked with her, and I went to Costa Rica, and I flew 7 times in 8 days on planes from the jumbo jet to the 4 or 5 seater where the windshield is right here, and if you stop and start looking at the bugs on the windshield, you can get a little freaked out by it. But I
Yeah.
had no problem. It was like I felt cured, and I was like, oh,
Mm.
there's really something to this. It's not magic. There's something that goes on here. And so I just got really interested in reading about hypnosis and the neuroplasticity of the brain. And then, of course, if you've seen What the Bleep Do We Know, or any of those movies about that are really about brain science, or read any good books like by any of the neuroscientists that are out there right now doing all this really cool stuff and cool research, it just became really fascinating to me. And there's something about knowing that there's science behind this stuff. because I do like to hover between the esoteric and the not so much, and so I do like to have things be a little, fact based or evidence based, like, this works because, and I do like to have some scientific, I don't want to say proof, but some scientific knowledge about the process, even if it's a metaphysical process, or even if it's a spiritual process. I want to also know about, well, what's the science part of that
Right.
anyway.
That's so
Yeah.
interesting. Like for me, like I I will look at the science only to have a confirmation of like, or it'll be brought to me. Like I started working with clients on, healings in a certain way, but it really was neuroplasticity that I was kind of leading and guiding them through. And I really didn't have any clue to that's what it was until the angels brought in front of me that Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Ugh,
And I started
my hero.
I know, and I started leaning into, the way he teaches the meditation, and I was like, "Oh, my Lanta, like this is exactly what I've been doing." And so then I would go a little further to see like I do it in a completely different way, and I don't need the science, but I loved him explaining it because then it just really brought this beautiful confirmation through that this
Yeah.
is exactly what my clients need.
Yeah.
Somebody is asking, Doreen is asking, does the hypnotherapy cure you forever, or will the issues you are dealing with come back? That's a great question,
It
Doreen.
is a great question. I love that question, and
Yes.
I have a great answer for that question.
Go.
So the neuroplasticity, hypnotherapy works by basically working with the neuroplasticity of the brain. So, in your brain, just picture your brain as like there's a bunch of neural networks in your brain, and all these neural networks are it's all the information that you've ever learned and ever put into place. So let me be specific. So say if you have a habit that you want to break. Say you bite your nails all the time, and you've been doing it since you were a kid, and you want to stop. Well, if you go to hypnotherapy, and what happens is the therapist, me, would help you develop a new neural pathway in your brain that was a narrative about you not being a nail biter. So now there's a neural pathway in your brain that talks to you about being a nail biter, and gets triggered by all the things that have triggered you all your life to bite your nails. But then what we do is we work together first to figure out like some of the stressors in your life and some of the things that maybe you can control in the outside world, to cut down on the things that do trigger that neural pathway. But what we really want to do, and what we end up doing, is creating a new neural pathway that starts to override the old one. So here's how it lasts forever. It lasts forever because once you stop biting your nails, every time you don't bite your nails, you're reinforcing the neural pathway that tells the story about you not being a nail biter. And so that'll keep going and keep going and going. So it's the repetition of the change in behavior is what really cements that new neural pathway in. You have to know that neural pathway is just neurons that are, they're firing here, they're firing here. You're doing something new. You start a new behavior like, oh, I do not bite my nails anymore. And through hypnosis, that message is getting put into your unconscious mind. So these neurons start to fire. They're like, what are we talking about? Oh, we don't bite our nails. Okay, so these guys light up over here, and they say, okay, I can get on board with that. And then after 7 or 8 sessions, they meet up. They're like, okay, we agree, we're no longer biting our nails. Now you don't feel as compelled to bite your nails. Or maybe you go to bite your nails, and all of a sudden you're just like, why am I putting my fingers in my mouth? I don't do that. That's really the science behind that, is that new neural pathway is saying, whoa, 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 we don't bite our nails. The old neural pathway is just a whisper now saying, oh, I just got triggered, I'm going to bite my nails. But then the new neural pathway is the stronger one. It lights up and it says, we don't bite our nails. And then I've had a client tell me this, that they had their finger to their mouth and they were like, why am I putting my fingers in my mouth right now? Like they didn't understand, and they stopped. It's because that new neural pathway had already taken over and said, this isn't something we do. So don't
Can
do that.
you can you explain the right side and the left side of the brain, and what happens when they stop? Why do they stop communicating? And that's the neural pathways you're talking about, right?
Well, no, not really. But
Okay.
but I love that question too, because that's where the whole trauma issue comes in, like the whole trauma thing that we
Yeah, go
started
there.
talking about. So I'll go there. When you have trauma, we experience a trauma, and I want to say this too, because trauma is specific to the person experiencing it, right?
Mhm.
So my trauma and your trauma could seem like opposite ends. Like I could look at your trauma and be like, oh, that's nothing compared to what I had to go through, or vice versa, right? But it doesn't really matter, because whatever your experience of it is your experience. So, somebody can get bit by a dog when they're a child and then never be able to be around dogs their whole life. And somebody like me got a house full of dogs would be like, oh, that's just ridiculous. Like, but it's not ridiculous, because that's the trauma for them. So I want to say that, because some people judge themselves about trauma and they're like, well, what happened to me isn't really that bad
Or they don't
compared
want to
to,
call it trauma. They
or
just
they don't
feel
want
it.
to call it trauma.
Right.
Exactly.
But it changes the way you function. So
Yeah. Well,
that's
because it
really,
does change your brain chemistry. So what happens when you are traumatized by something, you have to imagine like animals. This is the best way to explain it. So like animals in the wild. So say you're a deer running through the woods because there's a pack of coyotes chasing you. You're a deer, so you're just doing instinctive things, you're just doing instinctual behaviors. You're going to run, you're a prey animal, you're running, you're going to run. That's the way that you fight back, is by running. Say so now all these chemicals are flooding into your system, flooding in, all these brain chemicals are going haywire, and it's just like fight or flight, fight or flight. So let's make believe that the coyotes all just get bored and they say, oh, forget it, let's just go back over there and go home. So now the deer will, most animals will fall down, or they'll go into the bushes. They'll shake, and maybe they'll vomit. They might, lose control of their bladder and their bowels. They might pass out on the ground, and they'll shake and quiver and shake and quiver. And then after a period of time, they'll get up and they'll shake themselves off and they'll get on with life. We don't do that, say. Now, if we could do that, if we could react to trauma in the moment of trauma, but for us as human beings, it's not usually a fight or flight, it's a freeze. So humans, it's fight, flight, freeze. Animals, it's either fight or flight, unless you're the very smart possum, which also will freeze. But that takes an incredible amount of energy. So you look like you have a question.
I do. Well, I want to say, when somebody has a question, I'm going to read it to you. But what you're talking about is what's also referred to as like regulating, self-regulating,
Yes,
like, finding that soothing piece. It's like,
yes,
a baby will rock or cry because it's letting you know it's regulating itself, his or
exactly.
herself. And we do know it instinctively, but then we move away from it, and then we deny ourselves that self-regulation. So then we lean into things like maybe drinking or addictions. That's where they come on, correct?
Exactly, exactly. And so what happens in that time of trauma is the two hemispheres of the brain, they basically stop communicating. They stop
That's
communicating.
yes.
And so then, unlike animals, we don't shake it off. We don't immediately process that trauma. We
Right.
don't immediately. Maybe we'll cry, maybe we'll scream, but most of the time when we're in a trauma situation, we're frozen, and we're either the victim of the actual whatever's going on, or we're the witness to it, and we're frozen in time. And for a lot of people, when they experience trauma, they actually dissociate from their body. It's almost like they
Right.
get outside of their body and become the observer. And it's really a disconnect of the hemispheres of the brain. And so that trauma, so here's where it gets tricky. So we can be aware of our trauma, and we can go to therapy, and we can talk about our trauma, and we can talk about it and talk about it and process it. And that's important. And I definitely support people going to therapists and seeing counselors and getting to the bottom of what's going on, like getting to the bottom if there is trauma, getting to where did this come from, like why do I show up this way, or why do I react to certain things this way, why do these things trigger me. It's certainly helpful to understand what happened and to start to process that. However, from a science point of view, when you're talking about the thing that happened and you continue to talk about it and talk about it and talk about it and talk about it, what you're really doing over time is you're taking that neural network in your brain that experienced the trauma and is holding on to that trauma story, and you're reinforcing it,
Yeah,
because the
reaffirm,
more you talk about, right,
reaffirming.
the more you light up that neural network, and the more it
And
lights up, the more it wires together.
that's the question she's asking. Should someone start with counseling first to deal with the trauma, or should they start with hypnotherapy?
You know,
Which comes first?
yeah, I don't think there's a good answer to that. I think either one of them, because most hypnotherapists are people that do hypnotherapy.
Our
It's
counselors
a
and therapists.
it's a counseling and
Right.
hypnosis combination. Um, I'm certified and licensed as a clinical hypnotist. I'm some people are MSW or LCSWs or whatever, that use some hypnosis as a tool in their practice. And so it really doesn't matter. I would say it's probably not that effective to just say, oh, I have all these symptoms, I'm just going to go get hypnotized. Because
Right.
I feel like when you're going down that path, it's almost like you're looking for the magic pill. And
Right.
hypnosis and hypnotherapy, it's not magic. It really is science. And in order for the science to work, the psychology and the spirituality and the energy also has to be part of that picture. Does
So
that
I
make
can,
sense?
it totally makes sense. And I just want to like reaffirm for Doreen, like what she's asking is like, for me, I never wanted to get stuck in the trap of talking about the same old, same old. I really was ready to witness it, move forward. And so I really love, I've worked with Sheree, I've worked with a couple other people that are energy um, and therapists. They have a dual modality. So it wasn't just one thing, and it was more somatic treatment, so moving and getting back into that self-regulation, so safe to be in the body, safe to have the experience, and safe to feel the feelings, because that is really what trauma is. Like, you're not allowed to feel your feelings, and so this really just gets you to that point. It's not necessarily replaying or going back or blaming or shaming or any of that.
Mm-mm. Yeah, and I love that you said about somatic experiencing too, because there is also this process that's part of somatic experiencing called TRE, which I've done, and I've also co-facilitated some workshops with a friend of mine who does TRE as a part of his practice. And TRE, it's trauma releasing exercises, and now
Mm,
they're calling it just tension releasing exercises to kind of stay away from the whole trauma trap that
right.
some people get in. But it's a whole series of uh, physical movements that are designed to exhaust major muscles in the body. And when you do it, it's a little freaky, because you basically end up lying on the floor, and if you've done it full on, you just end up shaking and trembling, and your
Mm,
legs are going crazy. When the first time I did it with this guy, I couldn't, you can't stop. Like, they're just, it's like you're flailing
yeah.
almost on the floor, and it feels crazy, but it feels good. And when it finally stops, like your body finally settles, that's what you would have done
Yeah.
had you been fight or flight, in your trauma, whenever your trauma happened. And if you were an animal, if you were in your animal brain, that's what you would have done. But because we have this great big frontal lobe, we shame, we have guilt, we have judgment, we have all these other emotions that come in and get involved. When if we could keep it super simple, we would be like the animals, right?
Mhm.
And but we're not. So these trauma releasing exercises, it kind of mimics that and it helps the body energetically release what's being held in the tissues. They say the issues are
Yeah.
in the tissues, and the body keeps the score and all that. So I believe that very strongly. And so that those exercises help do that. That's a powerful workshop that my friend Mark Giroux and I have done a couple of times. And
I love
we've
that.
yeah.
It's very similar to the awakening yoga teacher training that I'm taking,
Yep.
which is, it is repetitive, and it is like, it goes in so deep in a certain area. And what the energy, I'm sorry, what the angels have taught me a little bit about trauma, or a lot about trauma, is that energetic imprint that stays within the body. I fed the dogs already. Um, uh, he's putting a sign up. Did you feed the dogs? Um, Doreen, we will definitely share. I will share Sheree's information at the end for sure. But anyway, so this energetic imprint stays within the body, and unbeknownst to you, you're picking up feelings and energy all of the time. And just like our nerves send a signal to move our arm and move my hands and talk, well, when you pick up a feeling that's familiar to that wound, you don't even know it, but all of a sudden you're being triggered again. And that feeling doesn't belong to you, it belongs to the outside world. And you're trying to assign it to something in your body. You're not even aware that there's this deep rooted thing inside of you that is just keeps rising to the surface. And this, when we talk about abundance and we talk about, being able to get out of our own way, how many people have said that? Like, I can't get out of my own way. It's like the negative just keeps finding me. I just can't,
Yeah.
yeah, I can't get ahead. Um,
Well, well, you know what I love about that?
tell
Because
me.
I really do. I mean, I don't love that we feel that way, but the good news is this makes me laugh. I'm sorry. The good news, it's not your fault. It's your
It's not,
brain.
it's your what?
It's your brain.
It's your brain. Oh,
Your
there you go.
brain. It's your
It's your
brain.
brain, man.
It's your brain. Because okay, so I grew up in a farm, right? So when I was growing up, here were the things that I heard all the time from my parents. If I needed something or wanted something or it was too expensive. What do you think? Money grows on trees? Who do you think I am? My father used to say this. Who do you think I am? John D. Rockefeller? I'm thinking, I'm 5. I just want a new bike. I don't even know who this Rockefeller guy is. So I don't know. No, I don't
Do
think
you
the
have his
Rockefeller.
number? Yeah,
Right. Why? Because can he get me a bike? Like, it was just, oh, you should be just happy that you have a roof over your head, all that stuff. And so, now as an adult, I've spent a large period of my life, you know, trying to figure out how to create abundance or how to allow myself to have more financial freedom or whatever.
But money
And
doesn't grow on trees.
but money doesn't grow on trees. And who is this John D. Rockefeller
You know
guy?
what the hilarious thing about that is? Like, when I channel a departed loved one, um, they'll come through to show that, to say like, your dad would come through to be like, if I could erase all that, like,
Really?
he would come through to reaffirm that this was a toxicity he planted, not meaning to, but that's what
Yeah.
they were taught this. And that's why, like, having compassion for the people that inflicted that trauma is really important, because imagine what they were told or how they were taught to
Of course.
not
Of
make less
course.
not make less of your pain, but really lean into, like, wow, if I lean into the possibilities of healing here, then it can also help them. It can also maybe set them free. Your energy and your departed loved one doesn't end here. Like, if they're alive or if they're on the other side, your healing, it matters, because
Yeah.
they'll evolve as you heal.
Right. So true. I agree with that. I agree with
Yes.
that. So, with the abundance thing, it's like you have a neural pathway. Whenever there's something going on in your world, in your life, that is repetitive thinking, repetitive behavior, an addictive behavior, we all have addictions. And so when I say addiction,
Yes.
I mean, having self-loathing thoughts, it can be an addiction that you have.
Yes.
And when you have an addiction, this is the part about what I've learned through hypnotherapy that I think is really important for people to know is that it, it how do I put it? It's like, it's not, you're not a bad person. Everybody's born perfect. Like, you come out into the world and you're beautiful and you're perfect. And it wouldn't even matter if you were born with 2 heads and 5 arms. You, as this little being that just came into the world, experiences yourself as amazingly beautiful and perfect. And it's just culture and society and life and everything
Conditioning,
that
and
happens.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
And
then
other
you,
people's problems becoming your
yeah.
problem. Yes.
Yeah, and you start getting those messages very young that this
Yes.
isn't okay, that's not okay, you should this, you shouldn't this. And it's just the way of the world. There's no changing that unless we're all going to go out and live
But
with the
that's
animals.
that's literally why we're here. We're here to have these vast experiences so that we
Right,
can evolve. We're not here to, like, be living in la 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 la. Like,
right. But
so, but we do want abundance. So let's just talk about really quick, when we get through the trauma, and I know you worked with people and had them get on the other side. What does it look like from being like in a messy place to being abundant? What have you witnessed? What are miracles that you witnessed?
Well, in the work that I do, here's the thing. People come to me right now. I mean, I've been really enjoying this great learning in my private practice as a hypnotherapist. And people come to me for all kinds of things, right? They come to me with presenting with issues, right? Well, I have anxiety, or I've had women and a couple of men come. I want to lose all this weight that I'm carrying around, this excess weight. And this excess baggage, right? So there's a little metaphor in there. Um, or I've had people come to me with different addictions. They're eating problems, or smoking, and porn, whatever. But the thing is that underneath all of this stuff, I'm finding that underneath it all, there is some kind of trauma. There's
Yeah.
some kind of stuff that they're holding on deeply to, and because of the trauma, usually the stuff that they're holding on so deeply and so holding on to is feelings of not being worthy, not being valuable, not being lovable, not being necessary, not being seen, not being heard. And so as soon as they can get, and that's what I'll focus on. You come to me and tell me that, oh, you want to lose 50 pounds. Okay. But 9 times out of 10, there's something underneath that 50 pounds that you're protecting, right? It's not about the weight, and it's not about the food. So if I can work with you, or you can work with someone, or work with yourself to get to the point of more self-loving thoughts and beliefs and behaviors, then all that other stuff that shows up as a symptom is going to take care of itself. So that's the beautiful stuff that happens. I have a young woman, and I'm actually going to post, she sent me her before and after picture of the work we did together. And, she came to me with weight issues, and I've known her a long time, and she's had weight issues since I've known her. And, and, and she came to me when she was ready, 100% ready. And she even stalled a couple of times. She was like, I'm going to come. I'm not coming. I'm going to come. I'm not coming. And then when she finally called me one day, she said, I'm ready. I'm coming. I've got the money. I'm ready. I'm motivated. I'm going to do this. I want to do this with you. She came to me, and of course it wasn't about the weight, and it wasn't about the food. It was about all kinds of trauma from her childhood, and all kinds of anxiety that she had developed because of it. And to see her now compared to the way she was when I do post this picture, I just haven't done it yet. She sent it to me out of nowhere. She was like, I want you to see this. Because, when you work with somebody, you don't see the changes immediately because you're seeing them every week. And so you're like, oh, you look great today. Or you look better today. Or how are you feeling? Oh, you seem better. But it's like a day and night picture, miraculous picture. Not just that she dropped all this weight that she was carrying around. Another metaphor, by the way, dropped all this weight she was carrying around, but her face and her just alive, vibrant. Like, you could tell that baggage from the past, once it left, then the weight release was easy. The weight just went along the way of it. And so I think the things that I've gotten to see, and even working in the addiction field, and not even with hypnotherapy, just working with people with really bad, life-threatening addictions, it just seems like to me, the moment that they actually start to get and understand that they're worthy people, that it's not their fault. And when I say it's not their fault, I don't mean to imply that it doesn't mean you don't take responsibility for whatever. You take responsibility to be accountable, but it's not something bad about you that made you become this person, made you become an addict, an addicted person, or made you become a person that struggles with weight issues, or made you become a person, that's not what's defining you. Those are just symptoms of something that's deeper, that once you get to that and can find this self-forgiveness first, then you can move on. So that's, to me, that's the miracle. I guess it doesn't sound all that miraculous, but I guess
I
it
think it
depends on how you
does.
look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it's
Yeah.
interesting. There's so many pathways that we can go on for our own personal healing. And
Yeah.
whenever someone comes to me, I love what you said. Like they say they want this one thing. Like they come and they're like, I want to hear from this person, and they have a kind of what the angels will show me as like an agenda. I get this like view of like a checklist, and I'm like, oh, okay, they got an agenda, and I just lean into, like, depending on how firm they're set in that agenda, like if that has to be their checkoff list and they need that, we'll do it. But if they're open and there's a pathway into the peen, they're going to bring me and they're going to be like, okay, just bring her around this way or him around this way. And then we're going to get to the big healing. And it's literally amazing, because if they are open, God will give them what they need,
Yep.
not always what they want, but they will leave with way more than they expected. And I think there, like I said, there's so many pathways to our healing that it doesn't take, one session or one thing. It has to really light you up. And like, I know a lot of you are writing on here that this, like Doreen is really messaging, like this hypnotherapy has been really incredible for me. Like working with Sheree was perfect magic and came at a really good time. Like I don't think I could have done it at an earlier time, because I would have been, I think, more resistant to it.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think when it comes to you and when you feel it, lean into it.
Yeah, I totally support that. I've learned, of course, too, this past year, I've learned, and I'm getting better at this. I've learned to, like, I'm pretty, Jeannie, I'm pretty intuitive, and I
Mm,
really don't, when I have somebody here with me, I tend not to overthink anything with them. I just sometimes close my eyes and just try to feel, what is it? Like, what is it? What is it? What is it? And I usually can get to it, and with that person. I'm also learning that when people aren't ready, they're not ready, and I won't take them as a client.
mm,
It's like if I have a sense that they're really not ready to I don't want to say do the work, because see, that's the other thing with hypnotherapy. It's not work. It shouldn't be work. It just should feel like an openness to
right.
discover things, right? To discover things and to embrace the change. And so I know you and I had talked about that we wanted to talk a little bit about, maybe the law, like law of attraction and spirituality and hypnotherapy, and how they all kind of roll together. And I feel like it's helpful for people to understand that there's all kinds of things at work all the time, right? And
Mhm.
so, there's forces that we don't understand, because if we did, then we wouldn't have any questions left, would we, about life and what's the purpose and the meaning of it all. And so, there's a force, there's God, there's higher power, there's guides, there's whatever is going on, and then there's your brain, and your brain is part of it. And so the science part is always so fascinating to me, that there's also this thing happening in your brain, and everything works together. So what you believe to be true, you create a neural pathway and a neural network
Mhm.
in your brain. And once you have that belief system, if you learned something when you were a little child, if you learned that you were unlovable as a little child, maybe you just had a bad situation with, maybe you lived in foster homes, or maybe whatever, maybe your parents died, or who knows. And you felt, you had this neural network start in your brain that you're not lovable, you're not worthy, you're not valuable. And that neural network keeps getting reinforced throughout your life. And so by the time you get to a certain point in your life, you're making poor choices, and you're very unhappy, or maybe you've got addictions or whatever else. I kind of forgot where I was going with that, but it's like you're
Well,
you're the
abundance, right?
abundance. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you have this neural network in your brain that, all right, I'm going to shift gears, because I want to make more sense out of this. When you're trying so hard to make things happen, like
Mhm.
there's so many people that I know that are trying so hard to make more money and find freedom and peace, and create something, or create a big a business, or whatever, or just attract a mate, or what, all the things that you said in the beginning of this. And they are doing all the right things. They're doing this, they're doing that, they're going to therapies, they're going to the groups, they've read the books, they've doing everything, they're praying, they're doing everything. and yet it's still not happening. And they feel like, why is this not happening for me? Because I'm doing everything right. I have felt that way, and I still feel that way about certain things in my life. Like, why is this not happening for me? Because I'm doing everything right. Well, you can be doing everything right.
Guys, can you relate to this? I just want to know if anybody on there relates. Just put a heart or let me know. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, go.
If everybody doesn't raise their hand on that one, I don't know.
I
But
know, right?
so okay, so you're doing everything right. And probably one of the things that you could do more right is to get out of that lack mindset, is to get out of that neural pathway that you picked up when you were a child or somewhere along the lines. It says you're not worthy, you're not valuable, or like me, money doesn't grow on trees. I'm not John D. Rockefeller. There's a neural pathway in my brain that lights up that says those things to me. I'm not even aware of it anymore. It's
But
like
it's
when you're
more than just like you just can't get out of it. If you don't, like, this is where the magic is. Like, you can tell yourself over and over, and this, this is how I know affirmations do not work unless you believe them.
right.
And energetically sensitive souls, empaths, people that are aware of energy, cannot lie to themselves. They cannot say an affirmation and just have it come true. So you can say over and over and over again, I am going to make $1 million. I'm going to make $1 million. I'm going to make $1 million. That's not going to bring the $1 million to you, because underneath it all, you're lying to yourself. And so
Right. And
that's where the neuro rewiring your
yes.
brain, because it's an unworthiness. There's something underneath that. Um,
Yes. I love the, let me just say this. I'm going to catch on fire talking about this. So I love that you
don't
just
get on fire.
um, I love that you just said that, because that is the thing. So because you know that you're lying to yourself. So there is the energetic piece, right?
Yes.
Energetically, you know that you're lying to yourself and it doesn't feel right.
Hmm.
What did we talk about today? Insides have to match the outsides.
That's right.
You know that you're lying to yourself. And so here's the other thing. Your brain is like a computer. Your
Mhm.
brain has a download that is hardwired into a computer that agrees with the fact that you do not deserve that abundance. You don't deserve it. And here's why: because you're not worthy, or blah, 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 or money doesn't grow on trees, or whatever it is. And so you can say the affirmations, and it's like you'll say the affirmations, I am abundant, I'm abundant, I'm abundant. But everybody that's listening and everybody that's not listening knows that if you know that you're lying to yourself, a little voice comes up in the back of your head and says, no, you're not. No, you're
Mhm.
not.
Right.
No, you're not. And so when that little voice comes up and says, no, you're not only is it coming from that neural network that's already there that says not deserving, not worthy, not valuable, not getting it, not having it, money doesn't grow on trees, but it reinforces it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so
So
you're stuck there.
that's why this work is so effective. So just a couple of things. Okay, so Doreen is saying, like, is it effective even when your trauma is still living and affecting your life? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Samantha is saying this is so profound, and and she's beyond grateful for both of us for sharing this wisdom and
Oh,
unconditional love. Um, and they're like, holy moly, oh my God. They're like, yes, yes, yes. This is like totally like leaning into why do we feel what we feel, and you're not wrong for feeling it. You're
right.
not wrong. And this is the other thing. um I was telling you about Oprah's new book, which is, it's actually really profound and a really great, like, if you want to learn more about the science of neuroplasticity, first look up Joe Dispenza. Absolutely will explain it all. Watch his videos, YouTube, he's amazing. But this book, What Happened to You, is really leaning into, like, these things happen to you and they're real. Don't deny them. It's okay. It's not about shaming or blaming. Again, it's leaning into recreating a positive new neural network so that you can have
Right.
that abundance, which is to feel better, to feel free of that pain, physical pain, mental pain, that anguish. To how about like not sleeping? I know so many people, so many clients I've worked with that don't sleep. They aren't sleeping. I was one of those people. I was not sleeping at all before I started this work. It was like last November I started, and I was having such a hard time. I was blaming it on menopause. I was blaming it on, the glass of wine I'd have here and there. Literally, I just was a mess energetically.
Yeah. And sleep is so important. And
Yeah.
I never realized that myself until
Yeah.
I've read a lot of this stuff about neuroplasticity and gone to trainings and things. And sleep is so important. And most people don't ever get enough of it, like 8 to 9 hours a night. And some people
Right.
think 8 hours, I'm lucky to get 4. And you're like,
But you
well,
can't sleep if your adrenals are fatigued. You can't sleep if you have, all of this hot mess going on inside of you. And that
you
all that
can't.
all affects that vagus nerve. And that too is another issue. Like once you work with this neuroplasticity, once you work with rewiring, all of a sudden that's the somatic healing without even knowing it. It's calming that vagus nerve down, which is going to calm down your nervous system. It's going to stop that always being in the fight mode,
Right.
like fight or flight, fight or flight. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I literally had like no cortisol in my body. My naturopath was like, this is dangerous. This is so low, like on the verge of like having to do medication.
Yeah.
This is what saved my life, honestly, like leaning into doing this cool somatic work and coming back to myself and
Yeah.
leaning in and not worrying that I was going to hurt somebody or cause some, like that's where I was like, I don't want to look at it. I don't want to talk about it. I want to just be a good person.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to say, like, I don't know what you just said, but it just triggered this thought in my mind about something. It said something that Joe Dispenza talks about a lot, but it's really about how it's important. And I started talking about this before. It's important to be aware of what triggers you and why.
Mm,
So it's
right.
really important to um, explore your story, know what your story is, and to process that. However, again, the more you tell that story, the more you're reinforcing the neural network that is the victim neural network. And and here's something that's really important to know. When you're in the victim mode, and people that have serious trauma or have experienced trauma, this is my experience anyway with working with people, that it's very easy to get caught up into the narrative of the trauma experience. And once you're there, so then those two things start happening. You're telling the story of the trauma, and then you're believing the secondary story. So there's this whole concept, I talk about it a lot in the different work that I do, about clean pain, dirty pain, right? So when something happens to you, you have the trauma experience. That's the trauma experience. And you can process that and be in that and feel the emotions that go with that. That's processing that experience. But then there's the secondary experience, which is the dirty pain, which is all the things we start to tell ourselves about the trauma experience. If
Mm,
only I hadn't done
yeah.
this, this wouldn't have happened. And if this wasn't that,
Like
this
you
wouldn't have
call that the
happened.
dirty pain.
It's called the dirty pain, clean
Fucking
pain,
dirty
dirty
pain.
pain. The clean pain is the pain that's natural and it comes like, so say you experience, like when my mom died. This, I use this as an example a lot. When my mom died, I was close to my mom, I had a good relationship with her. When she died, I didn't have, I had the clean pain. I woke up in the morning. I remembered that she was dead. I cried. I was unhappy. I was thinking, how am I going to live without my mother? And then about 2 months after her death, the dirty pain started.
Mm,
It started with like, if only I hadn't done that when I was 15. Oh, I wish I could take that back. Oh, if only I had been a better daughter. If only I had, it came out of nowhere, but here it came, this dirty pain. And so it's easy to get stuck in that. And that's what keeps you in the victim mode, right? And when you're in a victim mode and you have a victim mentality, it's really, you can't, nothing is going to move forward as long as you stay stuck there.
right.
And a lot of people stay stuck there. And so 20 years later, they're still telling the story of what
And
happened back
and
here.
there's the lack stacked up. There's the proof is all of that lack is stacked up around you.
Yes. And so the more you tell the story, the more you reinforce that neural network that was the original story.
Right.
And as Joe Dispenza and most of the neuroscientists that I have read and listened to will say, that by the time you're like 35 years old, about 50% of what you tell in your story is not even true.
Mhm.
because you embellish, you leave things out, you add things like the little telephone game in school when you whisper something in the person next to their ear. And
Right.
when it goes all around the circle, by the time it comes back to you, it's not even what you said. It's the same kind of thing, but we do it with ourselves. And so, and then every time you're telling that trauma story as the victim, this is important. Every time you tell it as the victim, well, the reason that I keep drinking so much is because when I was 15, I was sexually abused. Well, now you're 55. It, if you keep telling that story, well, on an energetic level, you're not letting go of it. And on a psychological level, you're not letting go of it. On a science level, you're continually reinforcing the neural network that says that all of this is true because you're unworthy and if only and blah, blah, blah. Does this make sense?
Yeah, it makes complete sense.
Yeah. And so you have to be willing to move beyond that mode too. And sometimes people get stuck in the victim mentality because there's a payoff in there. And so you see, that's why
Even
I'm
if it's a
saying
negative reward, you've
yes,
learned, you've taught yourself, or you were taught and you just took that on, that that negative reward is your worthiness.
right. It's better than no reward. It
So
speaks
can
to something.
we're going to wind down, but what I want to know first off,
No, I want to talk about this until midnight. Oh,
I know,
we
right?
can't. Okay.
I want you to give them one tool to walk away with tonight, and then give them how they can get a hold of you.
Okay. So I get a lot of folks that come to me um, presenting with anxiety as their number one thing.
Hmm.
And when you think about anxiety, I'll make this quick. When you think about anxiety, anxiety is mentally thinking about or worrying about things that haven't happened yet. And if you don't think that's true, then if you think, well, because your body, the body becomes the mind, and then the body starts to react to things as though they actually happened already. And so your brain is thinking about the snakes. I'm afraid of snakes. I don't like snakes. I don't like snakes. I'm going to go to that garden tomorrow and I hope there's no snakes. And what if there's snakes? And now you start to have an anxiety attack. Feeling your body's reacting as though there's already a snake in the room, and there is no snake.
Ah,
You're
there's a
sitting in
snake in
your
my boot.
right. You're sitting in your
Anybody in
living room, and
territory?
there is no snake.
Anybody
And
has.
so you can create these bodily emotions by
Mhm.
thinking about things that haven't happened, including thinking about things that have already happened. You can make yourself feel really sad and miserable, and then you can put yourself into a funk and whatever. And so, but I want to focus on the anxiety, because anxiety is another moment in time when the two hemispheres of your brain they're not really talking to each other. You get stuck in a loop of thinking, and they're not really processing across the hemispheres. And so you start to have this anxiety response. And so I'm going to reach over here because I have this little egg here that I keep in my office that I bought years ago at that little shop on Bank Street, Jeannie, at that little garden shop. I had little tchotchkes in it.
Mhm.
So it's this little egg. It's a little glowy egg. But you can do this with anything, and you can do it in front of people because people won't know that you're doing it. You're feeling anxious. You can feel this anxiety welling up. What you want to do, it's like EMDR or tapping in a way, and that you want the two hemispheres of your brain to hurry up and start connecting with each other and start communicating again. Not just because, not to make the anxiety go away, but to just start to process it and make it, well, yes, to make it
To
go
feel better,
away.
to
Yeah,
feel,
to
yeah.
calm it down. So just take something that you can catch easily, and you just throw it back and forth, one hand to the other, back and forth, because what you're doing is right hand, left brain, left hand, right brain, left brain, right brain, left brain, right brain, left brain, right brain. So you're thinking, you're feeling anxious, left brain, right brain, left brain, right brain. You're
Great.
making your brain, the both hemispheres, you're making it talk to each other. You're making them talk to each other. And so the anxiety response starts to lessen. I also, because anxiety is such a big thing, most people, when they have anxiety, they come to me and I say, where do you feel it in your body? And almost always it's right here, right? It's the heart chakra and solar plexus. These are the where we feel things, right? I was sick to my stomach. Oh, it broke my heart. These are where our feelings live. And the gut is like the second brain, or even better. And they usually make a hand gesture. They'll say, oh, I feel it coming up this way. Or, oh, I feel it right in here. So I tell them, and this is something everybody can do. Other people, if they're watching, they might wonder, what is she doing or he doing? But take that hand gesture, take a deep breath. Here's where I feel it. And if it's a circle, if it's bubbling, if it's banging, whatever it is. Here's how I feel it. Make that gesture and then take it away from you. Put it over here. Because energetically,
See you
you're
later.
moving the
Bye-bye.
energy over here. Bye-bye. And then reverse the direction of the hand, or if it was bubbling up, bubble it down, bubble it down, bubble it down, bring it back, and then just pat yourself in the chest. Take a deep breath. I'll guarantee you feel better. And then tapping is always something you can do.
My friend Doug taught me this butterfly tapping.
Yeah.
Over the heart center, really just about receiving love, and you can take it wide, you can keep it close, but again, you're hitting all those meridians, and tapping right here with your middle finger also gets you right into your body. You drop right in, and then you can start being in your breath rhythm. These are great tools to start to work with that somatic experience of self-regulation.
Yeah, I just had this cute little vision in my mind. You know how these like zombie apocalypse movies and all this stuff. Soon we'll just be walking around, and everybody we pass by will have something in their hand, and they'll be like, and one like this, so they'll be doing this. And this also is the right brain, left brain. You're asking your brain to engage on all levels and to have those neurons firing across the synapses. And the other thing I would leave people with is that I think is so important, that I want everybody to understand, is there's no other way to say it. Like, yes, you may have all these things going on in your life, and part of it is just not you. It's your brain. It's your brain. Your brain is like a computer. It's not some brilliant thing going on in there. It's a computer. It downloads information and downloads it and downloads it and downloads it. And after a while, some of that information is completely irrelevant to your life and disruptive to your life. And the only way to get it out of there is to not unprogram it, but to download a new program that your brain will go to instead of the old program. And that is simple science, and it's fascinating. It's fabulous, and can be life-changing.
Yeah, listen, you were taught to be you were potty trained, right? So this was the same thing. Like, you learned something new, and now you're walking around as an adult without diapers, which is, well, maybe you are, but
depends on how much older you are now.
It's kind of the same thing. You can relearn a new positive thing that's going to take, and you don't remember what it's like really to wear diapers. You don't remember what that experience was once you relearn this new great thing. So tell them
and repetition is the key. So the more you don't wear diapers, the more you don't wear diapers. The more you don't smoke, the more you don't smoke. The more you love yourself, the more you love yourself.
Yeah.
It's simple.
Okay. So tell them how to get a hold of you.
Okay. Here's how you get a hold of me. You can go to my website, which is the simplest way, because there's contact information there, my phone number and email address. And so my website is Surdam, Surdam, S as in Sam, URDAM, Mary, hypnotherapy.com. And that will just take you to my website. And you can also message me on Facebook. That's really the only way I get, if you just message me on Facebook. But I am in there. That's those best ways. Yeah.
So do you have a business page? Is it under
I don't. Okay. I started one, but I didn't. I decided to just go with a website, and I'm on LinkedIn also, so you can find me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. And if you guys know me and you can reach out, I'll forward you on and make that intro.
Yeah. Gee, this was fun.
So much for sharing.
Thank you for having me.
Your magic.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Guys on Facebook, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks everybody for being here.
What I know, because angels don't lie. Thank you, Sheree.
Thank you,
all right,
Jean.
have a great night.
When she smiles at you, she'll say, angels don't lie.